Peace. This is supposed to be my quiet time, but as my people would say, the Spirit led me to share something with you that will hopefully answer a question that quite a few of you have asked me since I did the Inconsiderate Friend post based on the remarks of Isa. And the question is that a lot of you want to know, how can you get better at being present for your friends? How can you get better at keeping in contact and being connected while at the same time honoring your need for space, respecting the fact that you too are just simply not a constant communicator. Like, that's just not your way, but you also don't want to be estranged. Well, I've been there. I be there. And this is one of the things that I love about linguistics. I know it may seem like a weird segue to go from that question to linguistics, but I truly believe that language, the beautiful thing about language and linguistics, particularly sociolinguistics, is that it intersects into every aspect of our lives. Like there's no topic that can't be touched on that isn't relative to language or communication in some way, even if you're dealing with language in the form of signs and symbols, etc. Language intersects in virtually every aspect of our lives, including this one, which really comes down to communication, basically. Well, the answer is consistency. That's the answer. Being able to communicate consistently doesn't require you to communicate constantly. And I think people confuse the two because, well, they sound similar. You believe that they mean the same things, but this is where knowledge of the language and affording you the words to be able to communicate what it is you actually feel, the ability to make sense, the thing that's in here when it comes from here. And that's really the disconnect. Sometimes the thing makes perfect sense to you. You just have a hard time making it make sense to other people. So it's really a communication issue. And the difference between consistently and constantly basically comes down to constantly is repetitive. It is something that is done nonstop. It can be emotionally, psychologically, even physically taxing to try to do virtually anything constantly. And it raises the standard of what it takes to be a true friend to almost an impossible level for the average person, much less someone who's on the spectrum, or someone who's dealing with mental, emotional issues, someone who's just, I don't know, a little awkward, a little weird, like myself, a little bit left of center, I suppose. But that would be very taxing for anyone. And I have a loved one who's just not a constant communicator at all. And we had fallen out of communication for a while there, and they called and they were really apologetic and said that, they really want to be better at staying in touch with me. And in fact, in a moment of I don't know, emotion, they were like, I'm going to contact you every day. I'm going to call you every day. And I stop right there. Don't do that to yourself. Don't put yourself in an impossible situation where something that should be pleasure turns into pressure, because we both know you're not going to keep in constant contact with me. Well, and that's okay. I don't need you to do that. And they said, well, it's just that sometimes when we talk, the conversations get heavy and I hesitate on calling because I really don't want to get into anything heavy, even though it's not like that all the time. I just never know when it's going to be heavy or too heavy than, for what I'm prepared for in that moment. And I don't call and I apologize. I'm going to try to work through that and call you anyway when I'm feeling that way. And I said, there again, don't do that either. Do not call me when you don't want to call me. That's actually the opposite of what I want you to do. I want you to make sure that your communication with me stays in the wheelhouse of your comfort, not only for purpose of sincerity, but clarity, because it really does work both ways. This isn't something that you're doing for me. This is something we're doing together with one another. So both of our feelings are valid. And sure enough, having the freedom to not call me, to not text me, has turned into us being able to communicate sometimes twice a week. Sometimes the conversation might be 3-4 hours long. Sometimes the conversation might be just a text at 3 a.m. But we're able to stay in contact with one another consistently without having the pressure to stay in contact with one another constantly. Consistently simply means it is done with form, like consistency. Okay. Like my nephew doesn't like tapioca pudding because he doesn't like the consistency of the pudding. Consistency simply means it is done with form. It's done with some degree of uh, pattern that you can know that if you can consistently speak, say once every 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, that may be only once a week, but you do it with consistency, or some degree of a rhythm in order for the person to feel comfort in the fact that may not come when you want them, but they always right on time because they're consistently in contact with one another, not constantly. And that leads to what I think we're all aspiring for, which is constancy. I know it may sound like portmanteau for constantly and consistency, but constancy is actually a different word. And this is what I love about linguistics, because I believe that this will be helpful to those who are looking for the thing that is constancy. And constancy is faithfulness. Constancy is a form of loyalty. Constancy is commitment. Constancy doesn't require you to do a thing or do all things, not just a thing, but do all things at all times. Constancy is about faithfulness, fealty, in a sense, to an ideal, a principle. It's about being present in whatever way that you can. And so that's what I would suggest. If you're trying to be a better friend and find a better way to be present while at the same time honoring your need for space, and sometimes you may be sharing your me time like I am with you right now. What you're looking for is not so much, sorry, I'm looking at some deer. I'm looking at some deer. What you're looking for is consistency, not necessarily something that you have to do constantly. And hopefully in that consistency, you will discover constancy. I hope that helps. And now, back to my quiet time. We out here.